So sometimes, at least for me, it can feel really hard to pray. There are times where I'm just overwhelmed or distracted by the events of the world or just plain exhausted by things going on in my life. When I find my mind is distracted and stretched thin, it can feel impossible for me to fully connect with the divine and to immerse myself in complicated prayers and structures like the Amidah, which we are about to pray. When I find myself in a state of mind like that, it can feel disingenuous to pray, let alone to stand up here and to lead others in prayer. If I'm not able to put my mind fully aside and immerse myself in my full focus for the entire prayer, why am I even bothering to be here? I'm guessing that this is a feeling that most of us can relate to, especially given the demands of our world and the things we read on the news every day. Luckily, just in time for Shabbat this week, I found some glimmers of hope and motivation for myself in the teachings of Rabbi Eli Confer on this week's Parsha, which is Parshat Noah, the story of Noah. According to Rabbi Confer, this week's Parsha has an important lesson to teach us about how we pray when we feel like we don't have the words or the focus to connect with God. So this week, as I just said, we read the story of Noah, which is one of the most familiar stories in the entire Torah from preschool on up. I'm guessing we have all heard of Noah's Ark. At the start of this week's Torah portion, God seeks out Noah, the only righteous man in a world filled with violence, and tells Noah that he needs to build an ark because God is about to wipe out the world with a large flood. To ensure survival, God instructs Noah to build this huge ark and to bring his family and 2 of every single creature on earth with him. The broad strokes of the ark instructions are quite familiar. You could probably have given that part of this sermon tonight as well as I did. But there's a lesser-known commandment that Rabbi Confer asserts teaches us a lesson about how to pray and to use our words. One of the verses of this week's Torah portion reads, Sohar ta'aseh l'teva. Make a sohar for the teva, the ark. The first word of this phrase, sohar, is something called a hapax legomenon. Has anyone heard of that phrase before? It's okay. It's weird. Which means that it is a word that only appears in the Bible a single time. In the entire Torah, there is only one word, sohar, which means that it's really hard for us to know what this word means. Even in the official translation, Bible scholar Everett Fox notes about this word specifically, Hebrew obscure. There are different translations of the Torah given the obscurity of this word. It can be a window, a skylight, an opening of daylight, an element of light, a roof, the list goes on and on. Rashi offers 2 explanations of what this sohar that Noah had to make in his ark could be. He says it's either a window or it's a precious stone. So first, why would it be a window? We know that the ark had a window because Noah uses it in this week's Parsha to send the raven and the dove out into the world. So that could be one way that we know there's a window. Ibn Ezra points out that the Hebrew for the word noon, soharaim, arochat soharaim from camp, is derived from the same root as sohar, tzadik he resh. So at noon, the sun is all the way in the top of the sky, maximizing the amount of light on the earth. Because of this connection to that root and maximizing light, many early sages thought that the word sohar meant a window. So if that sohar was to let in noon's light, clearly it had to be a window or an opening of some kind in the ark. So that's one option. The second option is a precious stone. Breshit Rabbah, which is a collection of stories about the book of Genesis, explains that Noah had a magical stone in his ark, this sohar, that helped him distinguish the passage of time. In the text it states, during the entire 12 months that Noah was in the ark, he did not require the light of the sun by day or the light of the moon by night, but he had a polished stone, this sohar, that he hung up. When it was dim, he knew it was day. And when it was bright, he knew it was night. Similar to a window, though different, this precious stone enabled Noah to bring light into the ark and to track the passage of time. Regardless of if this sohar was a window or a precious stone, it seems clear that its purpose was to let light into the ark and to serve as a bridge between the ark and the outside world. So now that we know what this Sohar is or isn't, you're probably wondering how this relates to prayer, like I said it would. Beginning with the Baal Shem Tov, Hasidic rabbis actually interpreted this commandment to make a Sohar for the Teva as applying not to the ark, but to speech. While in Parshat Noach, the word Teva means ark, through the beauty of the Hebrew language, in other contexts, that same word, Teva, actually means words and speech. If you don't believe me, I checked myself in the dictionary. It's actually true. Hasidic commentaries seized on this meaning of Teva and extrapolated that Noah's commandment to make a Sohar in his Teva ark actually had ramifications for how we pray. The Baal Shem Tov taught that the commandment to make a Sohar opening in this ark instead was a commandment to fill our words with light. Just like Noah had to create his Sohar to bring light into his ark, we are supposed to use our words to bring light into the world. Rav Noam Elimelech, one of the founding rabbis of Hasidic Judaism, taught that any word which a person emits from their mouth, one must see that this word shines with a great light, like the precious stone of the Zohar. In other words, we should recognize and make use of the power of our words. Like the Zohar brought light into Noah's ark, our words can and should be divinely inspired sources of light in the world. Building on this idea, Rabbi Nachman of Breslov taught that the words of prayer can all connect with God, regardless of how long or short they may be. He stated, "In one's prayer, even if it feels impossible for one to speak a word of prayer because of the greatness of the darkness surrounding you, nevertheless, one can speak even just one word of truth, even very quietly," he taught, adding that, for instance, you could just say, "Adonai Hoshia, God please save," in truth and earnest, and that is a fully worthy and complete prayer. According to Rabbi Nachman, praying and connecting with God is not an all-or-nothing game. Even if we do not feel like we can muster fully to get through every single page of our prayer book with full gusto, that doesn't mean that we have failed that night and that none of our prayers at Shabbat matter. As long as we focus on making one Zohar, one opening for light and intention in our prayers, we have prayed. In other words, even if we're overwhelmed or exhausted or can't concentrate on everything in our service, even if we're just distracted and zone out or get a text message accidentally, if we are able to give our all and truly say even just one or two words of prayer during a service in true focus, even if we make just one opening for light that comes out of our mouths and our souls as we pray, that still counts. Rabbi Comfort teaches, sometimes the goal of prayer is just to say a couple of words, a phrase with real intention or truth. Well, of course, myself or any of the other rabbis and cantors would say that we hope there are also days where more of our prayers are filled with light and meaning than just one or two words. I know that there are days where all of us can only muster one Zohar. Noah's ark only had one Zohar connecting him and his family and community with the outside world. That was all that God commanded him to make. So tonight, as we prepare to enter our Amidah prayer in just a moment, it's my hope that each of us will find some way to connect with our own Zohar. Maybe it's the words of our Siddur in Hebrew or in English. Maybe it's the words in your heart or in your head this evening. Maybe it's something else entirely. No matter what is going on in your world and in your life, I hope that you will find it within yourself to pray briefly with intention and connect with God during our Amidah tonight. Just like Noah's one window spread light into the ark, every single word that we speak is an opportunity to imbue our speech with light and intention if we choose.